Hey guys, who remembers this game? This is Submarine Commander on the PlayStation. It's made by JVC of all people, and another company I rarely hear mentioned, Victor Entertainment. So what we have here is a basically unheard of collaboration, at least in the games industry, making a game in pretty much the most niche market they could find. It's with good reason if you haven't heard of it, but to my surprise, I happily managed to beat it, and in a single sitting as well. Now the story is actually quite deep, and it touches on a lot of serious subjects, even in the real world. The basic prognosis is this: humans are bad. We destroy the ozone layer because we're bad, the ice caps inevitably melted, there is virtually no land left aside a couple of floating settlements, and most of the Earth's survivors are captains or the crew of submarines and boats. I guess the last bit makes a bit of sense, kinda reminds me of that story of the Waterworld film with Kevin Costner, but let's not go there. As the story progresses, you interact with characters whose personas change as the events unfold. You have your basic power-hungry leader, your crew who end up being the most shallow characters in the game, and other submarine commanders who are happy to almost be allied with you until you become too much of a threat. All very surprising for a game I had already subconsciously branded as a simple, low-budget title. I guess the biggest hurdle the game devs faced on this one was how on earth do we make an underwater combat game where you can't see your enemies and are basically doing everything blind, interesting and engaging. I'm happy to say they succeeded. Now this is what you'll see for a lot of the game, this green never-ending world. This is the sea. Now the controls are a mess and forever feel pretty unwieldy, but I can't imagine a submarine being that wieldy either, so we have forwards and backwards on the R1 and L1 buttons respectively. We have up and down on the D-pad to go up or down in depth. We have square to open up our strategy screen where you can load torpedoes and bring up your sonar options. Circle to bring up your sonar map. Are you still following me? Alright, let's keep it simple. So the wide sonar shows you the direction of your target. Beam sonar, when you know where your target is, will show you the shape of that target. When you choose your torpedoes, you normally need to wait around 12 seconds for them to be loaded. You then need to select them again to open those torpedo tubes and press X to fire. It's actually pretty in-depth, although unnecessary if you wanted to say. You can load sort of, let's say, 2 tubes with homing torpedoes, 2 with zigzag torpedoes, 2 with manual aim torpedoes, 1 with a decoy and 1 with an anti-air surface missile. If you wanted strategies, you've got them. Oh, and select gives you a periscope. Now when you aren't underwater blatting boats and submarines, you're going to be here. This is Plant 9. Now this is the base of operations for the whole game. Here there's quite a few places you can go. You've got your sortie bunker, so this is where your submarine's kept. The parts shop, yeah, you guessed it, this is where you get parts for your submarine. You can't go in here to begin with though, the guy who owns the place actually thinks you're a bit of a cheapskate. There's a torpedo shop run by a scantily clad young lady, yep. The bar alleyway, when you can talk to most of your stupid crew. Sometimes the story is accelerated here. Then you have a place called the Battery Salon. I don't actually know what a battery salon is, but either way, you get missions from this lady in here. It's pretty funny. If she doesn't want to talk to you, the stairs outside the Battery Salon actually raise. Bit of a pretentious cow. Next door, you've got the Steel Exchange, where you can sell bits of tat you find. There's the water input next up, where some crazy guy who accelerates the story sometimes hangs around. And finally the wharf. Now the wharf is empty for the most part, but sometimes there's another sub here, normally to accelerate the story as well. Now don't be fooled by everything that I've explained here, this is not an RPG. There is only one way to do things normally, and only one way to proceed. The only control you have is how you upgrade your sub and what torpedoes you bring along. Once you have your mission, you go back to the sortie bunker and back out to the sea. Now the combat's actually a lot of fun. The captain of your target normally comes up on this screen at the beginning of each sortie to tell you what for. I kind of like this, it makes your clashes a bit more personal, especially if the enemy's a bit of a dick. You'll give him that much more of a reason to go and sink him. Now every venture will start the same, you'll track down your enemy via sonar, and then you'll engage with torpedoes. If it's a submarine you're chasing, you'll follow them around the sea a bit. And if it's a boat on the surface, you'll go up to the surface, peek over with your periscope, and then boom. One thing this game treats you to is a sort of chase cam for your torpedoes. You can see how you hit the enemy, or if you missed, how you missed them. This also works in reverse, so if the enemy attacks you, you can see how close they were to hitting you or not. I had gripes with this a bit later on though. When you and your opponent are forever volleying attacks every few seconds, having the game going into this chase cam over and over is pretty annoying, and you can cancel it with the triangle button, but shouldn't I be able to turn it off completely? When you're chasing high-class, ultra-speed subs, I can't stress the fury I felt when I lost my target because I got an oh-so-important chase cam of my torpedo missing my target. Another thing that mars the combat a bit is there are not enough visual cues to tell you how fast or how slow you're going. I've had it multiple times where me and my enemy are literally going towards each other, going past. We must both be doing about a 180-degree turn and then repeating. I don't know, maybe this is how submarines really fight. And my god, do you want to hear the most annoying sound in the world? This alarm is freaking relentless. Yes, I fucking know there's a torpedo coming away. Do you not think I'm aware of the situation? Do you really think I'm stupid enough to think the enemy aren't going to fire back? Just shut up, just shut up, shut up! Yeah, pretty annoying. One sad thing is the torpedo selection as well. There are so many you can have, but until the last few missions I was quite happy using just the default ones. So just the manual ones that, you know, I had to get in line with my target to use. Sure, you can use the homing ones, which do work pretty well, and the missile types which hit the surface as well as in the sea are quite helpful too, but all the others, kind of pointless. You know, completely solar-powered torch useless, really. You can strategize with everything you want, but I would take a stab in the dark to say it's pretty unnecessary. I certainly didn't have any problems until much later on in the game. Now, Plant 9 isn't without its faults either. Sometimes you'll need to speak to certain people in sequence before the story will progress. Even early on, you meet some dummy head called Smith, who is, well, he's a buffoon. But to progress through the story, you need to talk to him. You need to let him finish, and then talk to him again, and again, and again, and again, until he disappears. Now, I can only assume disappearing is the same as walking off, but only after he's done that, the story progresses. There was no cue to tell you that you needed to keep talking to him, and sometimes you'll be stuck on Plant 9, wondering who the heck you haven't talked to yet to progress the story, and I don't think you should have to do that. On the Plus, there's not actually that many people around, and if you're really stuck, you could just talk to them all over again, and you know, until their dialogue starts repeating. Still, it's unnecessary, and it's not using a submarine to fight anything. One more thing, and probably the most noticeable thing, I haven't really seen this sort of stuff since the Nintendo Entertainment System. There are spelling mistakes absolutely everywhere. Now, ultimately I don't really care as long as I can read it, but it's quite funny to imagine everyone on Plant 9 is simple, or, you know, dying from dehydration, you know, they can't string a sentence together, and they're talking forever slurred, you know, stuff like that. But when a sentence is supposed to read a dog or a cat, and instead the sentence reads S dog or S cat, you know, they just hit the S key instead of the A as it's right next to it on the keyboard. It's funny, but nobody proofread this, that's for sure. So in conclusion, it's a fun game. There are a couple of faults, but you can't forget what's been attempted here. A fun submarine game, and for the most part it really is. I've got a whole afternoon's enjoyment from this, and it's the only console submarine game like this I can think of. On that merit alone, this is a real accomplishment. I haven't seen much of this game on YouTube, so if you're interested, I'm actually going to try and upload my playthrough of the whole game with a commentary. If you want to see this and the true ins and outs of this bizarre offering by JVC, check that out. Thanks for watching.